We're approaching the end of national selections for the Eurovision Song Contest 2024, and as is tradition, Sweden will be among the last to select its song and artist. Today we're talking about who has the best chances to win Melodifestivalen and represent the country on the home stage. To talk about this year's Mello, I'm very pleased to welcome a content creator that some of you might know. He goes by the name Groot, and he's best known for doing these in-depth musical analyses of Eurovision songs and national selection songs. And he's also been doing these watch-along events of national finals, and he's built a community around what he does. And so I started out by asking him what his impressions have been of this year's show.
I started off not being excited, but something always happens within the middle of Melodifestivalen for me, and I always get excited no matter if I like 5 songs or if I like 25 songs. I just get excited as we go along anyway. So right now I'm feeling very much in the mood to just get to the final and pick a song. And now I'm enjoying the season, but maybe I haven't, like from the beginning I didn't really, because the songs have been, I don't know, we usually say that they're subpar compared to years prior, but maybe we say that every year, I'm not sure. We'll see how they hold up later on.
Now, on the topic of how this year compares to previous years, things haven't gone as smoothly as they typically do when talking about the actual production, and one of the reasons for that is because of a change that was made to the actual structure of the show. The broadcast that used to be known as the second chance round and later the semi-final was removed. It used to be that the songs that finished in 3rd and 4th place in the respective heats would be performed again on a separate event, and whoever came out on top in those events would move on to the final. The replacement was a runoff vote, which happened on the same night as the last heat, where 6 new songs were performed. And what happened was, the songs that ended up advancing to the final were the exact same ones that were performed that night, which has led people to believe that they had an advantage for being fresh in people's minds as compared to the other 8 songs that people didn't see on that night.
There's been the most insane negative backlash I've seen in a long time regarding this system. In Sweden, it's a big issue for a lot of people. A lot of people feel very passionately about it. Like, Melodifestivalen has very devoted viewers, but they also has casual viewers, you know. So maybe the people who watched now the 5th heat, maybe they haven't seen heat 2 and 4, but they liked a song from heat 5 now, so they voted for those, and they can't really vote for a song from heat 2 or 4 because they don't know them. They saw a 20-second recap clip. I'm pretty sure that any song that would have been in this second chance round, if it was performed on Saturday, the same Saturday as the semifinal took place, it would probably be the one that qualified for the final.
Usually when we see these kinds of changes, they try them out for a few years. Do you think that this is going to be, with how the response has been, they're going to be changing their mind for 2025?
I would be very surprised if they didn't, because the backlash has been way too severe, I think.
It's pretty remarkable for an event that's as big as Melodifestivalen to have caused this much of an uproar with the local audience. It's difficult to say how much of an effect that's going to have on the rest of the year, apart from what's already happened. But for the time being, there are still 12 songs that are in the running to be the host entry for Sweden in 2024. We're going to be looking at 7 of them in detail, and as usual, we're going to be starting with the one that has caused the most excitement.
She's unforgettable.
Despite coming from Norway, Marcus and Martinus are quite big in Sweden and other parts of Scandinavia. They're returning to Melfest after having finished in 2nd place last year with their song Air. Unsurprisingly, they were among the early favorites to win the show when the artists were announced back in November. And since then, now that we've seen the songs performed, they've really cemented themselves as the big favorite, so much to the point where the odds currently have them at over 60% chance of winning. Much like last year's song, this one also borrows a lot from dance music, and you can see it being born out of similar ideas, but this one has an overall different feeling to it.
I think that Air kind of felt like a very polished package, while Unforgetable, their song this year, is more kind of focused on a more gritty sound, which intrigued me, but it's also something that I'm not personally really sure about. There's something just with the kind of lack of melodic purpose within the song, I would say. It's so focused on being club friendly in a way, and also just being about presenting a performance to match that kind of vibe with the song, that I feel like it's losing something that's so instant for a listener. If you play it on Spotify or if you listen to it on the radio, it's not really sing-along friendly in that way, and it's not really kind of easy listening vibe type of song. The performance feels a lot like Dance You Off a little bit, with the light show and with how they boxed in the performance. It's very much kind of like a music video vibe to the performance. But the thing was with Dance You Off was very, very easy to just listen to without the performance as well. It felt slick, it felt very clean and scaled back as a song, while Unforgettable is all out grit, really.
Other people have also expressed their doubts about the song itself, despite the high placement in the odds, and to a degree that's expected because they are considered to be such huge favorites, but it could be for the reasons that Groot points out as well. Now for me, I can appreciate the overall sound of the song. Both this and Air have styles of production that are similar to music that I've been enjoying for years, but what's not really to my taste quite as much is the kind of performance that this is. The choreography, the style of singing, the intense looks into the camera, they all feel like they come from the school of 90s boy bands, and it's just not for me personally. One thing that I would agree with when it comes to the winning qualities is that this entry does something that the last two winners of Melfest did quite successfully, which is to change the space of the stage quite dramatically in a way that makes the performance feel unique to everything else. As far as impact goes, this is highly impactful, and despite the fact that I'm not really connecting to the performance, I'm still getting a lot of energy from it, and it feels like a winning performance. So considering all the excitement behind it, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the one that wins in the end.
Call the police, 'cause you just stole my heart. So effortless, so effortless, so effortless.
Jacqline is one of the artists that's making her debut in this year's Mello. Before that, she was best known for being the runner-up in the 2021 edition of Idol. The song that she's bringing, like the others, is also dance pop, but unlike the ones that borrow from 90s and 2000s dance music, this one is a bit more retro, it's a lot funkier, it's got a very slick production to it, and it feels like a song that would be successful internationally. Now, considering that Sweden is this big pop music powerhouse, both inside and outside of Eurovision, you would think that we would be seeing entries like this in the final every year, but it actually seems to be a bit of a rarity.
I always feel like we have a song like this in Melodifestivalen every year, and every year it's kind of something goes wrong with it. In this case, nothing has gone wrong, and she's kind of skyrocketed, but she's gone up to second in the odds. It feels to me like if there's any reason behind the kind of jury vote here, I think they will notice that the production quality of this track is something else. It's very clear that everything is allowed space within the soundstage, and that's something that I think is very prominent in modern music right now. You really highlight the bass lines, you kind of shelter the drums a little bit, but you still have these small little fills here and there that actually add a little bit of flavor. So I think there's absolutely something within Effortless that just feels very, very 2024.
There are definitely a lot of qualities that seem to give this song an advantage, and that would explain why this is seen to be as the most likely to win after Marcus and Martinus. And I also agree that this could be heading for a really good jury score, possibly even winning the jury vote. Visually, it might not be as impressive as Unforgettable, but it's still tightly executed, and it fits the overall vibe of the song. And I actually like that it's less flashy and less imposing because it just feels more relaxed. The big question for me is whether or not this will get the televote support that it needs. She did win her heat, so it's not out of the question, but considering that there are a number of acts here that are expected to do really well with the televote, it could be what keeps this out of reach of a win. Ultimately, I do think that this would be a great choice for winner, and I think that it would stand out for the same reasons at Eurovision that it stands out here, so I would be very happy to see this represent Sweden.
Now I'll never let you go. I'm so happy that you found me. I'm so happy that you found me.
Danny Saucedo is best known for being a two-time runner-up at Melfest with his back-to-back entries in 2011 and 2012. We also saw him in 2021 with the song Dandi Dansa, and with this entry, it marks his fourth appearance as a soloist. The sound of this song might remind you of songs by groups like Swedish House Mafia, and that's no coincidence. Two of the songwriters that we have here are John Martin and Michel Zitron, who wrote some of the biggest hits by that group, including Save the World and Don't You Worry Child. John Martin, of course, also sang those songs. Now, as you would expect with artists that have been so successful in previous editions, Danny was also among the early favorites to win back when the artists were announced. Since the song was performed, however, that has waned a little bit, and the fact that the song is so true to that Swedish House Mafia sound might be one of the reasons why, because it seems that a lot of people consider that in 2024, that kind of style is pretty dated.
Danny is an artist of the time of basically the early 2010s, really, and maybe even a little bit prior. He was, of course, a boy band member, very successful one in Sweden. And then 10 years passed, and now he's kind of flirting with that side of himself again. Even though he's older, he's a dad, he's almost 40. You know, you can see that he's obviously changed as a person, but he wants, I guess, people to remember what was back then. I really admire Danny for going with that style of music, because he knows, and everyone knows, that music has evolved away from house. It's like shifted. We have other genres now who've taken over, but Danny doesn't really follow along with that vibe. And similarly to Marcus and Martinus, they go for a sound that was very prominent 10 years ago. There's a modern production behind it, and there's absolutely a modern take on it, but you're still flirting with something that is very nostalgic to a lot of people.
Considering his status, I think it's still possible for Danny to get quite a lot of televote support. The area of doubt that I have is with the juries and how they will feel about a song that doesn't really sound as up to date as the rest of the music that we see here. But one thing that could save him a bit is his performance abilities. He's got a full voice, you can hear that very clearly in the chorus. He's charismatic, he knows how to work the camera, and so I think that they'll at least respond to that. And so I wouldn't really call this the most competitive choice, especially since it's going to be compared to other styles of dance music, and if it stands out for being dated, then that's probably not a good thing, but I am expecting a good result nonetheless.
But I don't even think of you. I don't even think of you.
Maria Sur is another returning artist that we have in this year's lineup. She's originally from Zaporizhia, Ukraine, and had fled to Sweden after the invasion in 2022. In both of her participations, she qualified directly for the final, but this year she's bringing a very different song, one that she said is more to her taste for being up-tempo rather than the slower ballad that she performed last year.
I think that really shows when you see the performance. It feels polished. She really fits the tone of that song, I think, and it's very, very catchy, you know, to the ear. And I think that really speaks in its favor. I think it definitely has a visual identity that the other songs don't have. The only thing is that I think people might want something that's more upbeat, I would say, because this is definitely a dance-friendly club type of beat, but it's also kind of emotionally loaded, I would say. And I'm not really sure how well that is actually going to be received. It's obviously qualified for the final, but I'm not sure if it's really going to take it much further than that.
There's definitely an argument to be made about how much this song would stand out if it gets selected for Eurovision, because when we compare it to some of the other songs that we already see, this year is definitely the year of 90s and 2000s dance music nostalgia, and this song has a lot of that in it as well. Visually speaking, it probably wouldn't have too much trouble because they do something that matches the atmosphere of what the song is. They also do something that is a pretty effective way of making the song stand out, and it isn't necessarily an obvious choice, which is to form these tableaus with her and the dancers. And because normally you'd be expecting all-out choreography that's, you know, quick moving, but in this case they do something that really breaks the flow in an effective way. It might not be the most competitive out of the lineup, and Groot also pointed out that unlike in 2023, she didn't win her heat this time, so that might mean that winning isn't very likely to begin with. But I think it's great for this to be an opportunity for Maria to present a performance that's more in line with her vision and her style, and it's also an opportunity for her to do better than her 9th place finish in the final last year, and that could definitely happen, I think.
Can you hear them calling out? Heroes are calling.
Smash Into Pieces are also returning to Mello after having finished in 3rd last year with the song 6 Feet Under. They're pretty easy to recognize in the lineup because they have this nu metal sound to them that's reminiscent of bands from the early 2000s like Linkin Park. And the song that they're bringing this time around has a lot in common with last year's, I would say. The energy is similar, the structure is similar, the visual approach is sort of the same idea, but with different technology behind it.
They're going for a successful formula because they figured maybe if we do the same thing again, there's no Loreen this year. There is Marcus and Martinus, but maybe we can repeat the success and maybe more people will warm up to it. They obviously stand out a lot within the selection because there's no other song that sounds just like it, mainly instrumentation-wise, but it's still maybe just a little bit of a letdown that they don't really have the surprise effect anymore either. And they're going for the same thing again, but now people already know what they're all about. And maybe it's a little bit uninteresting because of it. I think they did a little bit of an oopsie when they picked their song this year because they've been releasing other music leading up to this that is different from 6 Feet Under. and instead they went for the song that really just feels like the follow-up.
Personally, I have a lot of the same feelings about the lack of surprise. I could definitely see the appeal in this song, especially for the crowd that really buys into this sound. But what's really lacking for me is the visual impact, which isn't at the same level as it was last year. The transparent LEDs that they had really gave the song an atmosphere that this one just doesn't have. And so given all that was said about similarities to last year, it does seem pretty unlikely that they're going to top their third place finish, and they could even be more or less dismissed in the scoring. But if they're able to attract votes for being more or less the only rock band in the lineup, then that could at least give them a boost. We'll have to see.
I finally found it, I am not mine.
LIAMOO is making his 4th appearance at Melfest with this song, and he's also achieved 4 out of 4 direct qualifications to the final, each time with a different style of song. The entry this year is a more vocally driven one, certainly more than his last one in 2022. It also has this like cinematic quality to it, and I could see it being played over the ending credits of an adventure film, or even like being the theme song.
With the exception of his 2019 song that felt very much like it wanted to win, this is probably the one that feels like he's properly going for it, because it tries to be very anthemic. Talking to other people and seeing what a lot of other people write online, everyone just seems to kind of be in agreement that this is really good and we shouldn't be like ashamed if we send this, like this is among the best songs we have. Except if you look outside of Sweden to the Eurovision fans who are not hyping this one up at all. But inside Sweden, a lot of people say like, LIAMOO was really good, everything about it was professional, there wasn't anything wrong with it, and it was very much something that Swedes kind of listen to, I'd say. So I'm definitely seeing this as a very dark horse to actually snatch it, even though it is on like 5% in the odds.
Now, win or no win, if he's this universally liked, then I could see him finishing in the top half of the scoreboard, and that's actually something that he's been able to do every time that he made his appearance at Melfest. It's also quite a visually strong entry. It's a good example of how to play up to the imagery that's implied in a song. In this case, it's called Dragon, and we're seeing a lot of fire and smoke to invoke that image. The only time that we see dragons are in these brief appearances in the background where they're just silhouettes. They don't put them in your face like some countries might think they need to do. As far as it being the best choice for Sweden, I have my reservations, especially if people are considerably less enthusiastic about the song outside the country. But if it did get chosen, I do think that it would have enough in it musically and visually to at least stand out, and it would also be bringing a different energy to the Eurovision Grand Final, which is certainly a good thing.
I'm falling into pieces every time you shoot me down. My heart is like an echo from the...
There's often a lot of excitement around Daughter's entries. Her 2020 song Bulletproof was one of the fan favorites both inside and outside of Sweden, and it only missed out on winning by 1 point. We saw her return in 2021 with the song Little Tot, and she was also considered to be one of the potential winners that year and eventually finished in 4th. The song that she's bringing this time is quite different to the bigger pop numbers that she's known for. It has a similar vulnerability in the songwriting, but it's considerably more scaled back, both musically and visually. A good example of this is in the cinematography, where it focuses a lot more on longer Steadicam shots, keeping her and her expressions as the focus of the performance.
I'm quite fond of it, like from a songwriting perspective, it's very neat and well put together. It just maybe doesn't interest people enough throughout its runtime. It's not this kind of grand hook that's just instant and very easy to remember. It doesn't have this flashy stage show. It's very much kind of held back, but it goes all out for a big chorus at the end. But it takes a long way to get there, and I'm not sure if everyone's really like heavily invested in the song until that moment, unless you already loved Daughter from the beginning. I think she could have played it safe, but she decided not to. She knows what most of her fans want her to do, but she went for something that she wants to do, and I have massive respect for that.
Given that she wasn't the winner of her heat as she was the previous 2 times, it's possible that there just isn't enough support for her, and it could be for the reasons that Groot is pointing out about the lack of immediacy. But with that said, I personally feel that this performance is among the most genuine when we look at what we see in the final, and that could be because this song was written only by her and her fiancé, so she's singing words that she wrote herself and knows flows at a deeper level. The only thing that's really missing for me is a touch of color in the staging, because apart from her red hair, it's a lot of black, white, and gray. And I feel like for an emotional song like this, you at least need a little bit of vibrance in there. But overall, I appreciate this a lot, and I would actually choose this over the majority of entries, even despite it not being the most immediate song in the lineup. So those are the songs that we're considering most likely to win or get a good result. There are another 5 that also have a shot at winning, and you can let us know in the comments which one you think is the most likely to do so. I'm gonna send a big thank you out to Groot. I'm really glad that we got to do this together, and I really appreciate your musical insight. I highly recommend that the rest of you check out his Twitch and YouTube channels, which you can find in the description below. Be sure as well to let me know who your choice is for Sweden this year, and if you liked this video, you could consider supporting me on Buy Me a Coffee, if you can, no pressure. And if you subscribe to the channel, we can keep chatting about Eurovision as it approaches. We almost have a complete lineup of songs, and I'd love to know what you have to say about the songs that we have yet to hear yet. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.